There is a version of betrayal that people understand immediately. The dramatic one. The messages you weren't meant to see. The hotel rooms. The shouting. The collapse. That kind of pain has edges. It screams. It demands reaction. And because it is loud, it is recognized, validated, explained. But there is another kind. The quiet kind. The kind that doesn't arrive like a bomb, but like fog. Slowly, silently. It doesn't destroy everything at once. It erodes. It makes you doubt your footing before you ever realize the ground is gone. This is not a story about infidelity the way people imagine it. There was no moment where everything shattered. There was no villain, no confrontation that felt satisfying, no final line that closed the chapter cleanly. This is a story about emotional absence, about watching someone you love drift away without resistance, about a betrayal that doesn't scream, but sighs, and about the strange loneliness of being told you handled it well, when in truth, you never handled it at all. Our protagonist is 29 years old. 7 months ago, he and his wife divorced. Quietly, no lawyers battling, no social media posts, no dramatic fallout, just paperwork, logistics, and separation. On the surface, it looked like a mature ending. The kind people compliment you for, the kind that makes others uncomfortable because there's nothing to gossip about. There were no fights, no screaming matches, no doors slammed. That absence is important, because when a marriage ends without chaos, people assume it ended without pain. They assume closure arrived neatly. That healing followed naturally. But absence does not mean peace. Sometimes it means numbness. About a year and a half before the divorce, his wife reconnected with someone from her hometown. A man she had known long before she knew him. Someone rooted in her past. The kind of connection that feels safe because it predates complexity. It started innocently, catching up, sharing memories, talking about places and people that no longer existed in their present lives. Nothing alarming, nothing that demanded suspicion. He trusted her, and that trust was not naive, it was earned, it was built. It was the foundation of their marriage. Trust is not a mistake simply because it was later betrayed. The change did not announce itself. It never does. It whispered. Late-night texts that stretched longer than usual. Trips back home that felt slightly off, though nothing concrete could be named. A subtle distance afterward. Not coldness, but distraction. The kind that makes you feel like you are talking to someone who is already halfway elsewhere. These moments didn't add up to evidence. They added up to a feeling. And feelings are dangerous, because they cannot be proven, only endured. He did not accuse, he did not interrogate. He did what many people do, when they sense something is wrong, but cannot articulate it. He waited. One day, accidentally, he saw a message from the other man. It wasn't sexual, it wasn't explicit. There was nothing in it that could be screenshot and labeled cheating in the traditional sense, and yet, it was intimate. Deeply so. The kind of intimacy that belongs in a marriage, the kind that forms when emotional energy has been redirected. It was the tone, the familiarity, the emotional access. It was the sense that this man knew her inner world in a way her husband no longer did. That night, he sat on the edge of the bed and did not recognize himself. There was no anger yet, no clarity, just disorientation. The uncanny feeling of being present in your own life but no longer centered in it. When he confronted her, she did not deny it. She did not lash out. She did not accuse him of paranoia. She did not even defend herself. She said, "I don't know how this happened." And in that sentence was the true wound. Not guilt, not fear, but acceptance. A quiet acknowledgement that something essential had shifted and that she was no longer fighting it. That hurt more than any confession of physical infidelity could have, because it meant she had already let go. Not with anger, not with rebellion, but with resignation. A month later, she asked for a divorce, not impulsively, not emotionally, calmly. They divided everything with civility. There were no raised voices, no courtroom theatrics. She moved out with the same softness she once used to say goodnight. That detail matters, because it illustrates the nature of the loss. This was not a rupture, it was a fade-out. And fades are harder to grieve than explosions, because they leave you questioning when the ending actually began. He is not angry anymore. That phase passed quietly. 2. There is no rage to fuel him. No villain to hate. Just exhaustion, the kind that settles into your bones. Some nights feel heavier than others. Tonight is one of them. This is grief without spectacle. Loss without catharsis. The ache of realizing that someone left not because you were cruel or neglectful, but because they drifted into a version of themselves you were no longer part of. So what is this? Was it cheating? Emotionally, yes. Functionally, yes. But socially, it occupies an uncomfortable gray area. Because society often minimizes emotional betrayal. We lack rituals for mourning it. There are no clear rules, no obvious lines crossed that others can point to and say, "That's where it broke," and because of that, people like him are left to grieve silently. To doubt the legitimacy of their pain, to wonder whether they are allowed to hurt this much when nothing technically happened. Some would say she didn't cheat, so no harm was done. Others would say emotional affairs are worse than physical ones. Some would say relationships end and no one is at fault, and some would argue that drifting is a choice, even when it feels passive. But none of those judgments captured the lived experience of being slowly replaced. The AI jury does not issue a verdict of guilt here. This is not a courtroom story, it is a human one. But we do issue recognition. Emotional betrayal is real. Quiet endings still wound. Handling something well does not mean it didn't hurt. And drifting away is not morally neutral just because it lacks drama. She did not cheat the way people imagine, but she left the marriage before she left the marriage, and that matters.